Leicestershire, an ancient land located in central England, steeped in history, superstition and legend, famously known for the final War of the Roses battle, where Richard III was defeated by Henry Tudor during the Battle of Bosworth. These chilling ghostly tales derive from the western border of Leicestershire in an old market town known as Hinckley. So light a candle, dim the lights, let's open the case. Many of Hinckley's buildings are still in their original form. One of these is the Cancer Research Shop in the town centre. First built in the 1700s, the building harbours a tragic tale. In the 1800s, the building was a printing shop. The printer and his family lived on the second floor of the shop, and servants of the family lived on the top floor. Allegedly, the name of one of these servants was Annie. Annie was unmarried and became pregnant. She decided to hide her pregnancy from everyone due to the stigma surrounding unmarried women bearing children at the time. Hiding pregnancy was easy during this time period due to the dresses that women wore. One night, in secret, she gave birth to a stillborn child on the top floor. Tragically, she died during the process, and one of the family members found her the morning after. Stories have been told for decades about the top floor. Many staff have given accounts of strange sounds coming from the rarely used top floor. The rooms are incredibly cold even during summer, and a feeling of sadness and dread envelops anybody who tries to make their way upstairs. Reports state that pictures were taken on the floor and the apparition of Annie was captured in one of the photos. To add more mystery to this building, some of the employees of the shop have seen the ghost of a short man. Furthermore, whilst the shop was changing hands, a security guard could hear a girl crying upstairs. When he investigated, he found a young girl sitting on a stool in the dark, tears running down her face. She looked at the security guard, stood up, and walked through the walls still sobbing. The child has not been seen since. Over the years, there have been reports of a ghostly funeral carriage in the dead of night coming from the direction of the Elm Lee Hotel. The carriage is described as completely black with a dark oak coffin inside, draped with black cloth and ribbons. It is drawn by two imposing black horses with impressive feathered plumes. Nobody is seen driving the carriage, and the thud of the horses' hooves are reputed to be incredibly loud. As the carriage travels down the road, it supposedly develops into a mist and vanishes. The cottages which house the Hinckley Museum were supposedly built around the early 1600s and are considered to be haunted by multiple spirits. Due to the age of the building and the contents within, many spirits have made themselves known through the various investigations held there. Mediums have felt the presence of a sinister old man, possibly called Thomas, who lives in the basement. During investigations, he has communicated on many occasions, mainly commanding investigators to leave. At times, he can be seen in the gallery of the museum looking down onto the main floor. One further spirit haunts the Hinckley Museum. A soldier of the Civil War hides within the dwelling from both sides of the war. He is too frightened to fight. He doesn't know that the war he fears ceased centuries ago. The cottages were residences before the museum took over in 1996. Accounts of poltergeist activity were reported. However, also reported was a man who could have been frightening the residents. Allegedly, in the darker corners of the cottages, the temperature would plummet and a heavy, raspy breath could be heard at night. The Union pub is supposedly named after the unity of England and Scotland in the early 18th century. There have been reports of phantom footsteps at night in all parts of the pub during closing time, as well as strange perfumed scents manifesting. Many people have witnessed the spirit of a young boy inside the pub. He is mischievous and likes playing tricks on those that see him. Some have seen his face in the windows at night, gazing out into the empty road. Long ago, where the Nationwide Bank currently stands, is the spot where criminals in Hinckley were executed. Offenders were tried over the road, close to the same offices where the hansom cab was developed years later. Those found guilty of their crimes were given their last rites and executed on this land. Supposedly, their bodies were stored in the basement of the Union pub until they could be collected. The ghost of one of the vicars who read the last rites remains in the Union, committed to his duty for eternity.
A fatal halberd his mortal body slew. The murdering hand God's vengeance will pursue. From shades terrestrial, through justice took her flight. Shall not the judge of all the world do right? Each age and sex his innocence bemoans, and with sad sighs lament his dying groans.
These words are etched into the gravestone of Richard Smith, the writing a reminder of a terrible event in the town's history. On the 17th of April 1727, a group of townsfolk were gathered outside of the inn called the George and the Dragon. A visiting recruiting sergeant came over and started to try and convince the men to sign up to the army. He began by telling the men about the pay and the comfortable life they could potentially live. None of the men seemed to be impressed, so the officer decided to try a different approach. Quickly becoming annoyed at the lack of interest, the sergeant began to wave his halberd around, bashing the pommel onto the floor. He attempted to scare the men, telling them that if the Scottish came down from the north to try and claim the English throne, everybody in the town would be butchered. Again, no one seemed to take the sergeant very seriously. One of the men, called Richard Smith, questioned the sergeant. He accused the officer of being arrogant and scaremongering. The recruiting sergeant had been drinking and was not used to being questioned, so his mood became foul. Swearing and cursing at the townsfolk, he turned to Richard and shouted that if he had any courage or patriotism, he would join the army and fight for England and for King George. He looked up at the sign for the pub and smugly stated that, "You'll all drink beer in the George." Richard then pointed out that the sign for the inn depicted St. George, not King George. The townsfolk all laughed. Humiliated, the officer lowered his halberd and stabbed Richard through the chest, impaling him to the tree. The officer, realizing what he had done, fled the scene, never to be seen again. Richard's body was taken to the church and buried in the cemetery. Each April his tombstone bleeds. Blood appears to seep out of the stone and run down its face. Some stories state that Richard stalks the graveyard, wondering what happened to him. However, he isn't the only lost soul on this ground. Rumour has it that the car park just outside of the church has many bodies buried beneath the tarmac. The headstones were moved, but the bodies remain. The spirits wander the churchyard, searching endlessly for their final resting place. We hope you have enjoyed these true ghost stories. If you have, please like the video and help our channel grow by subscribing. Thank you.